You know, we throw the word great around a lot for leaders, but there's really only one name in history who truly owns that title: Alexander. I mean, in just a little over a decade, this man didn't just win a few battles, he completely redrew the map of the ancient world. And get this, he accomplished all of this before his 33rd birthday. In fact, by the time he reached this age, he was already gone.
So how does someone who lived such a short life leave such a long shadow? Well, think about this for a second. His personal tutor was Aristotle, the father of Western philosophy. His armies? Never lost. Not once. And the Persian Empire, the absolute superpower of the time, he didn't just fight them, he conquered them. And in doing so, he created one of the biggest empires history has ever seen, stretching all the way from Greece to India. It's just staggering.
So that brings us to the big question, the one historians have been wrestling with for more than 2,000 years. How on earth did one man do so much, so incredibly fast? All right, to really get a handle on the man, we've got to go back to the beginning, back to where he started, in the rugged kingdom of Macedon. This is where that incredible ambition was forged, right from the day he was born.
And the pressure to be great? It was there from day one. Legend has it his own father, King Philip II, said this to him when Alexander was just a boy. I mean, with your dad telling you that your homeland is too small for your ambitions? Yeah, failure is just not on the table.
And this wasn't your typical royal education, not by a long shot. On the intellectual side, you've got the philosopher Aristotle himself teaching him about logic, medicine, you name it. For his inspiration, he was completely obsessed with Homer's Iliad. He basically saw himself as the next Achilles. But he wasn't just some bookworm, right? At only 10 years old, he famously tamed this wild horse, Bucephalus, because he was smart enough to figure out it was scared of its own shadow. So you've got this amazing mix of brains and guts right from the very beginning.
And then, bam! Out of nowhere, his father is assassinated. Alexander is just 20 years old, and this entire kingdom, with all of its massive ambitions, lands right on his shoulders.
Okay, so once he's secured his throne back home, Alexander immediately looks east. He sets his sights on the one prize his father had always dreamed of, but never got: the massive, mighty Persian Empire.
So you might be wondering, how did he pull this off? I mean, he was almost always outnumbered. Well, Alexander had a secret weapon, and it was called the Macedonian phalanx. See, the Persians, they had way more soldiers, but Alexander's troops were incredibly disciplined, and they carried something called the sarissa, a crazy long 18-foot spear. When these guys locked their shields together, they became this terrifying, impenetrable wall of spikes. Just imagine trying to charge that.
And with that incredible tactical advantage, he just plows through the Persian forces. In 334 BC, bam, first big win at the Granicus. Just a year later at Issus, the Persian king himself, Darius III, literally runs away from the battle, leaving his own family behind. And then comes the knockout punch in 331 BC at Gaugamela. The Persian army is totally shattered. The empire, it's his.
There's this great story that really sums up his whole personality. He's faced with the legendary Gordian knot. It's this super intricate knot, and a prophecy says whoever can undo it will rule all of Asia. So, what does Alexander do? Does he patiently try to untie it? Nope. He just pulls out his sword and cuts right through it. That was Alexander in a nutshell. Why mess around when a direct, decisive solution is right there?
So conquering an empire is one thing, but actually ruling it, that's a whole different ballgame. Now Alexander has this massive, sprawling, multicultural territory. So how's he going to hold it all together?
His strategy was pretty brilliant, really. It was all about integration. Sure, he founded a bunch of new cities to be centers of Greek culture. You've probably heard of one. He named most of them Alexandria. But here's the clever part. He didn't just force his culture on everyone. He started blending them. He started adopting Persian customs, even their style of dress, which, some of his old-school generals were not happy about. He even set up these mass weddings for his officers to marry Persian noblewomen, basically merging the two ruling classes. And when he got to Egypt, he took it even further. He had an oracle declare him the son of Amun, so he could rule as a divine pharaoh just like they were used to. Genius.
But even after conquering the entire Persian Empire, this guy's ambition just had no off switch. He wasn't satisfied. No, he wanted to keep going all the way to the ends of the known world.
So in 326 BC, he pushes into what is now India. And here, at the Battle of the Hydaspes, he runs into his toughest fight yet. He's up against King Porus and his, get this, war elephants. A terrifying sight. It was an absolutely brutal battle, but sure enough, Alexander's tactical genius won the day again.
And it's right here at what felt like the edge of the world that Alexander finally met his match. Not another king, not another army, but his own men. His army was just done. They'd been fighting for almost a decade straight, and they just refused to go one step further. As one historian put it, they just wanted to go home. And this time, not even their god king could change their minds. So he had no choice. He was forced to turn back. He gets to Babylon, starts setting up shop to govern his massive new empire, probably already planning his next big thing. But fate? Well, fate had something else in store. In 323 BC, he gets hit with this sudden illness, and within 2 weeks, he's dead. And to this day, we still don't really know what happened. Was it a terrible fever, something like malaria or typhoid, or was he poisoned? It's one of history's great mysteries, really. The question of how he died is almost as big as the legend of how he lived. And this is what you get when an entire empire is built on the shoulders of just one person. He dies with no clear heir. When they asked him on his deathbed who should succeed him, his answer was supposedly, "to the strongest." I mean, that's not a succession plan, that's a recipe for disaster, and that's exactly what happened. His top generals, called the Diadochi, started fighting each other for power. They spent the next 40 years in a brutal civil war that just tore his empire to shreds. His grand unified vision, it shattered into a bunch of warring kingdoms. So, okay, his physical empire didn't even last a generation. So what did? What's the real lasting legacy? The echo of Alexander. You can basically boil his entire legacy down to one key idea: Hellenization. What does that mean? Well, his conquest kicked off this massive wave of Greek language, Greek culture, and Greek people spreading all across the former Persian Empire. And this created a whole new kind of blended Hellenistic civilization that would literally shape the world for hundreds of years. And the impact was just huge. Suddenly, Greek was the language you used for business, for science, for everything. That city he founded, Alexandria in Egypt, it became home to the greatest library in the entire ancient world. And you see this amazing cultural fusion, creating brand new art, like statues of the Buddha that were sculpted in a totally Greek style. And of course, his military genius. That became the gold standard. Every great general for the next 2,000 years, from Julius Caesar all the way to Napoleon, they were all trying to be the next Alexander. When you boil it all down, his short, incredibly violent reign completely rewired the ancient world. He built a cultural bridge between East and West, and that connection ended up changing both sides forever. Which kind of leaves us with the big, final question about the guy. What do we make of him? Was he a brilliant unifier, this visionary who connected the world in a way no one ever had before? Or was he a brutal conqueror, a tyrant whose relentless ambition cost millions of people their lives? The truth is, just like the man himself, it's incredibly complicated, and that's what makes him so fascinating.